Holy Ghost Batman by Amalan. Chapter 24. Next Door Guardian. Wayne Manor. The morning after. Sam woke first. A faint glow seeped through the curtains, soft Gotham sunlight that barely made it past the high-rise buildings outside. She blinked and realized Danny had shifted sometime during the night. The girl had sprawled halfway across Sam's torso, her face tucked against Sam's side, one hand still clutching a fistful of her shirt, like she was afraid Sam might slip away in her sleep. Sam couldn't help but smile, even though her arm was completely numb. Carefully, she brushed the hair out of Danny's face, marveling at how peaceful she looked. No ghost hunters, no fights, no paperwork or politics. Just a kid who'd finally let herself rest. There was a knock at the door, light, hesitant. Sam mouthed a soft but called, "Come in." The door creaked open, and then he poked his head inside. His hair was a mess, his t-shirt wrinkled, and his grin crooked in that way Sam had learned meant he was trying not to laugh. "Well," he whispered, "guess I don't have to ask how the sleepover went." Sam rolled her eyes, but kept her voice low. She hogged the blankets. Then he patted in quietly, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. His gaze softened as he looked at Danny, then flicked back to Sam. "Thanks for, all of this. She needed it." Sam smirked. "Don't get sappy on me. I like you better when you're awkward." He gave a breathy laugh, then stepped closer, brushing his hand gently over Danny's hair. Then he stirred, but didn't wake, only mumbling something incoherent before burrowing deeper against Sam. Sam looked up at him. "She trusts you. That's why this works. I'm just trying to fit into the picture without messing it up." Danny's smile turned soft, almost shy. "You don't have to try. You already do." Giving Sam a kiss, who immediately groused about morning breath with a grin. Danny slid his arms under Danny and picked her up. One arm slid under her butt, and she instinctively gripped around his neck. As he carried her back to his room to continue sleeping while Sam got ready. Danny had gotten up first, so he went to make breakfast, borrowing the kosher kitchen from Alfred. And Sam offered to go wake up Danny. She found the girl sprawled across Danny's bed like she had gotten into a fight with the comforter. Later, after Danny finally woke, still blinking sleep from her eyes and yawning like a kitten, they shuffled into the kitchen together. Danny patted in barefoot, her hair sticking up in every direction despite Sam's brushing the night before. Danny was already at the stove, frying eggs, with the kind of concentration most people reserve for bomb disposal. "Morning," he greeted, flipping a spatula clumsily. "I figured we could have breakfast before heading out." Danny brightened instantly and climbed onto one of the chairs. "Can I have toast too?" "Already in the toaster," Danny said, proud of himself. He glanced back at Sam. "Tofu scramble and avocado toast?" Sam leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching him. "You trying to impress me with domestic skills? 'Cause it's working." Her eyes implied more. Danny's ears turned red. "I'm just feeding my girls." The words slipped out before he could catch them. He froze, the spatula hovering midair. Sam arched a brow, fighting a grin. Danny blinked, then slowly smiled, her eyes starting between the two of them, like she'd just been handed a secret treasure. No one corrected him, especially not Stephanie and Kaz, who had been about to enter the room. When Danny made that slip off the tongue, they grinned at each other and turned around to let the three enjoy a private breakfast, for once breaking the eternal vigil of the last few days. They grabbed an oblivious Tim and dragged him off to another kitchen as he whined that his favorite coffee is in that kitchen. Breakfast was messy, loud, and absolutely normal. Danny talked with her mouth full. Sam teased Danny about nearly burning the toast, and Danny pretended to be deeply offended while sneaking an extra egg onto his plate. It wasn't perfect. It was better. It was a glimpse of what they could be. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the east wing hall wall, pooling over the polished wood floors, and scattering across the old oil paintings that lined the walls. For Danny it felt like stepping into a hotel she hadn't earned her way into. She patted behind Steph, hoodie sleeves pushed up, mug of tea in one hand, as they stopped at a tall, carved door. Steph pushed it open with a grin. "Your room," she announced. It was bigger than Danny's whole bedroom back in Amity Park. High ceiling, soft carpet, a window seat big enough to sleep on, and a bed that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. There was even a writing desk in one corner, and a bookcase that she suspected Alfred had already stocked with an eerily accurate guess at her taste. Before she could take it all in, Steph swung open another door across the far wall, and this is the connecting room. Then he poked his head through from the other side, wearing a faintly sheepish expression. His own room was a little smaller, still huge by normal standards, but it mirrored hers, right down the same tall windows. Danny's brow furrowed. "Why does your room connect to mine?" Danny rubbed the back of his neck. "Embarrassing family photo opportunities? Also, so I can check on you when I'm here." She scowled slightly. "I don't need checking in. I'm not 5. Steph raised her hands. "Hey, it's just for convenience. You're not going to have to live with him breathing over your shoulder all the time." "Exactly," Danny said quickly. "I'm only going to be here on weekends for now. You will have your space. I'm not going into, I don't know, crash your movie nights or go snooping." Danny crossed her arms. "So you're basically saying this is a glorified babysitter setup?" Danny smirked faintly. "I'm saying it's a big house, and I don't want you to feel like you've got no one close by. It's different here. Figured it might help to know there's a familiar face one door over." Her pout softened just a little. "I guess. But if you start knocking on my door at 7 a.m. just to check in, I'm locking it." "Fair," he said, laughing under his breath. "Ha! Got you again." Danny Fenton nearly jumped off the couch in victory. Controller raised high as her character's victory pose filled the TV screen. Damian Wayne's scowl could have cut glass. His grip on the controller didn't loosen even after the defeat screen flashed for the 5th time. "You are not better than me. You're merely undisciplined." That's what the scoreboard says. I won 5 in a row." Danny plopped back down, crossing her arms with smug satisfaction. "Face it, rich boy. You're good at brooding. I'm good at winning." Damian's jaw tightened, his grip on his own controller visibly white-knuckled. "You're not actually skilled. You're just button smashing." His nostrils flared, but he resisted the match anyway. "Best of 7. Best of 5, she sing-songed. "And I already won. Learn to lose gracefully." He muttered something under his breath, but the cartoonishly bright music of the game drowned him out. Across the hall, Danny sat stiffly in an armchair that looked too expensive to breathe on, much less sit in. He twisted a glass of water between his hands, trying to look casual. Tim Drake leaned forward on the other side of the low table, expression serious, while Stephanie Brown perched beside him, her hand lightly on Tim's arm, as though to keep him from sounding too sharp. "You understand the problem," Tim said. He slid a folder across the polished surface. "There are no records, no school history, no medical file, no birth certificate. As far as the state is concerned, Danny doesn't exist." Danny winced, but nodded. "I know, I told you. She was on her own for a long time before I found her. No family, no one looking after her. I couldn't just leave her out there." Stephanie's eye softened, but her voice stayed practical. "That's not your fault, but it means we are working uphill. CPS barely lets you stay with your own folks. If they look too closely at the Fentons and see Danny in the picture," she trailed off, letting the implications hang. Danny rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, I've been worried about that. My parents mean well, but He didn't have to finish. Everyone knew the Fentons were more mad scientists, eccentric, than stable role models. That's why tutors make sense, Stephanie continued. We've got resources, connections, people who won't ask too many questions about her paperwork. It's not perfect, but I will bridge the gap until you can get something more permanent in place. It will give Danny a fighting chance to catch up on the basics. Tim nodded in agreement. And as for legal status, we can't push for adoption or custody yet. The count will ask questions we don't have answers for. But when you turn 18, you will be able to file for paternity. You claim her as your daughter. You build her identity from there. It's unconventional, but it's what we have to work with. Danny nodded slowly. Right. The permanent part. His throat felt dry. So about the guardianship stuff? Tim's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. That's the hard part. Right now, legally, she's no one's responsibility. That can raise red flags if you push too hard, too fast. I can petition for temporary guardianship, but the count's going to notice she appeared out of thin air. Then he frowned into his glass. Feels wrong for some reason. It's protection, Tim said evenly. Without records, Danny's vulnerable. The system will treat her as disposable. This gives her roots. Danny let out a slow breath, shoulders sagging. Okay, let's do it. I don't want her to think she's some kind of burden, or that I don't want her. From the living room came Danny's triumphant shout. Yes! Undefeated champion, baby! Followed by Damien's growl. Rematch! Danny crackled a smile despite the knot in his chest. At least she's finding her place here. Tim's lips twitched into the smallest of smiles. She's got spirit. That will take her far. Back on the couch, Danny leaned against the armrest, twirling the scarf Damien had thrown at her earlier like a banner of conquest. You know, you should thank me. I'm teaching you humility. Damien gave her a look sharp enough to cut steel. You're teaching me nothing. Wrong, Danny shot back. I'm teaching you how to lose with style. He scoffed, turned back to the game, and pressed start again. Danny smirked, settling into her seat. You're insufferable, he muttered, refusing to look at her. And undefeated, she countered. Damien's character collapsed in another defeat, and Danny whooped, tossing her controller in the air and catching it again. That's 8 out of 8. I'm calling it. You're done. Damien scowled at the screen. Next time, I will train first. Then we will see who's laughing. Danny plopped down beside him with a grin that was all teeth. Bring it on. But maybe practice losing gracefully first. He shot her a glare, sharp enough to cut glass, but there was a faint pink creeping up his ears. Danny noticed, and of course filed it away for later use. The kitchen had quieted after the rush of dinner. The counter still warm with the memory of sizzling pans and clinking glasses. The chatter of dishes echoed softly in the kitchen as Danny stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, water running warm over his hands. The scent of Steph's roasted vegetables and Tim's carefully spiced rice still lingered in the air. Danny rolled up his sleeves and settled at the sink, running water over a growing stack of dishes. The rhythm of rinse, scrub, and stack filled the room in a comforting hum. Danny leaned against the counter, watching him with an incredulous frown. You know Alfred's here, right? Isn't it kind of his job? Then he looked over at her, sponge in one hand, soap suds clinging to his wrist. His expression was patient, not scolding, but firm. That's not how you should see it, Danny. Alfred's not here to pick up after us, like some kind of machine. He's older than any of us, and he's already got more on his plate than people realize. He has to cook and keep one, possibly 2, entirely separate kitchens from this one clean. 1 coaster for Bruce, 1 holler for Damien. That's double or triple the effort every single day. Danny blinked, chewing her lip. Oh, the word came out small and her shoulders launched as she absorbed the thought. From the next room, Tim's voice cut in, carrying over the back of the couch. "Wait a second." He reappeared in the doorway, arms folded. "You already knew Bruce and Damien's eating habits?" His eyebrows raised in suspicion. The detective in him peaked. Then he just shrugged as he set another plate in the drying rack. "That's right. You weren't there for lunch with Uncle Dick and Uncle Jason shadowing us." He gave Steph an arched eyebrow before continuing. She looked pretty smug about it. "Sam's Jewish and vegan. I learned pretty quickly how important it is to respect how people connect to their spirituality or their values through food. I looked into all kinds of alternative diets so I wouldn't mess it up. Besides," he smirked faintly, "Grandpa Bruce and Kate drank from a separate bottle of wine from everyone else at the dinner the other night and had separate dishes. Duke said one of Damien's favorite street food vendors was a Halla kitchen, and I saw Damien take his prayers rug outside at dawn. It didn't take much to put two and two together." Tim leaned a little heavier against the frame, expression softening with reluctant admiration. "Most people wouldn't notice, or wouldn't care enough to think about it. I don't think most of the family even notices." "I guess I'm not most people," Danny said, with a quiet laugh. "Uncle Duke at least trusts Uncle Damien to know where he can eat." Behind Tim, Steph patted back in, still grinning from some private joke. "Not most people is an understatement. You should have seen Bruce's public crisis of faith moment a few years back, trying to avoid galas and charity diners for a bit. That backfired and just turned every socialite on the East Coast keeping at least one bottle of kosher wine chilled in case Bruce was there, usually bought from a Vane or Cane winery." She teased and tossed the towel onto Tim's head. "And honestly, if you want to keep doing the dishes after we cook, I'm not going to stop you." Tim sputtered, tucking the towel off. "Steph!" "What? You cooked? He cleaned?" "Fair division of labor." She winked at Danny. 10 out of 10. Would invite over again." Alfred had slipped in at some point, silent as ever, carrying a small tray of tea. He set it on the counter with measured grace, the faint smile tugging at his mouth. "I must confess," he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, "I find it quite refreshing to see a guest who understands both courtesy and perspective." Then he ducked his head, suddenly shy at the quiet praise. "Just feels fair, that's all." Steph looped an arm through Tim's, tugging him towards the living room. "Come on, detective boy. Let him finish up without the interrogation lamp." Tim gave Danny one last thoughtful look before letting himself be pulled away. Then he lingered a moment longer, her eyes flickering from Alfred to Danny. Then with a small nod, she picked up a towel and began drying dishes beside him. Danny's grin widened, just enough to be seen, and he blew a bubble at her. "Thanks, kiddo." And from the doorway, Alfred's approving gaze softened even further. The kitchen lights glowed warm as the last dish clicked into the drying rack. Danny had helped with the last few, though she yawned and rubbed her eyes against her sleeve when she thought no one was looking. Danny wiped his hands on a towel, gave Alfred a grateful nod, and ushered her towards the den. The others had gathered there, Tim, Steph sharing the love seat, low voices trading some easy banter, while Damien sat with a book balanced on his knee, half listening but pretending otherwise. Alfred had already laid out a neat tray of tea and small shortbread biscuits, the kind that smelled faintly of butter and lemon. Then he settled onto the far couch with Danny at his side. For a few minutes he let the atmosphere settle, the low hum of conversation, the stream from the teacups, the sense of ease that only crept into the manor after meal times. Then he slipped a hand into his pocket and produced 2 stacked white wrapped candy bars. They looked unusual, almost clinical, the wrappers printed with the same kind of prescription stickers you'd see on pill bottles. Danny's face lit up as he passed one to her. Alfred's sharp eyes, of course, caught it immediately. He raised one brow, though his voice remained calm. "Might I inquire about those, Master Daniel? I appreciate that you refrained until after dinner was complete, but I could have made something if you were still feeling peckish." Then he peeled the wrapper back from his own bar, the faintest grimace tugging at his face. "Medication," he explained simply. "It tastes awful on its own, so we have it compounded with chocolate. Easier to swallow that way. Weekly doses for both of us." He took a bite, chewed, and made a face anyway, as if the sweetness couldn't quite cover the bitterness underneath. Then he was already munching on hers, legs swinging unbothered. Then he added, quieter now, respectful, "She's got some extra in case I can't make it here on time with the next one, but normally just once a week, no big deal." Alfred studied the bars for a long moment, then inclined his head slowly. His eyes flickered to Danny, bright-eyed, licking chocolate from her fingers, and then back to Danny. The tiniest curve of approval touched his mouth, as if he recognized both the responsibility and the care in Danny's explanation. "Very prudent," Alfred said, softly, "and reassuring to know you have considered contingencies. I shall see to it that appropriate storage is available, should the need arise." "Thanks," Danny replied, genuinely. He slid the empty wrappers into his pocket and nudged Danny, who beamed up at him with a chocolate-smudged smile. Tim frowned, trying to think of a medication that might be used in that way. Normally, that kind of trick is used at the best of times for children, the elderly, or animals to take medication without complaint. At worst, it was used to cover a poison or sedative for less than lethal purposes. A medication for some kind of congenital condition? A condition neither he nor Steph were aware of? A side effect of the medicine? Or the cloning? Steph recognized the look of calculation and elbowed him. Then she looked up from the love seat, grinning. "Medication that tastes like candy bars? I'm jealous." Danny shook her head vehemently. "No, you're not. Trust me." That got a low chuckle out of Tim, who leaned back into Steph's shoulder. Damien, though, pretending to stay absorbed in his book, muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "At least they're responsible." The warmth in the room seemed to double after that. Alfred pouring second cups of tea, Steph's laughter bouncing against the old wood beams, Danny still happily licking chocolate from her hands, more from cookies served with the tea than the candy bar, while Danny tried to hand her a napkin. Danny was just finishing up, changing into her pajamas when there was a knock at the connecting door. She froze, then groaned, dragging her socks a little on the carpet as she went to answer it. When she swung it open, she found Danny standing there with a sheepish smile. Danny crossed her arms, already suspicious. "I thought you said you weren't doing check-ins." Danny scratched the back of his neck, then with a little flourish, pulled a brush out from behind his back like it was some kind of peace offering. "Well, for one thing, I only agreed to no check-ins before 7 a.m. and no snooping. This doesn't count. Sam mentioned you really enjoyed having your hair brushed out before bed. I thought maybe you could show me how you like it done." Then he stared at him, unblinking, for a second. Danny's shoulders slumped, expecting her to roll her eyes and shut him down. Instead, she closed the door in his face. Then he let out a quiet sigh, half amused and half deflated. Yeah, that went well. But before he could turn away, the door opened again. Danny marched past him with surprising determination, comically carrying her vanity bench in both arms, even though it was nearly half her size. She plopped it down in the middle of his room with a loud thunk, and gave him a look that said, "Well, don't just stand there." Danny's lips twitched into a grin, warmth flooding his chest. He followed her in and slid onto the bed behind her, motioning for her to sit. She perched on the bench, back straight and expectant. He took the brush and hesitated only a moment before gently gathering a section of her hair. Aunt Cass had given him a crash course earlier. Start at the bottom, not at the top unless you want to yank it and make her hate you forever. And he was determined to get it right. Carefully, he worked through the ends first, erasing out a small tangle before moving higher. Then he relaxed almost immediately, shoulders slumping as the brush gilded through her dark hair. The tension in the room softened. Danny's voice was quiet, almost tentative. "We can do this every night I'm here, you know, if you want." He paused, smiling down at her crown of hair. "You can tell me all the gossip I missed during the week." Then he tilted her head, just enough for him to see her faint smirk. "Gossip, huh? You're sure you're ready for that? I hear everything." Then he chuckled, brushing a little more confidently now. "Good. I guess that makes you my official inside source." Then he giggled, leaning back just enough that her head almost rested against his chest. The brush strokes grew more natural, rhythmic, as he worked. For a while, it was just the quiet sound of bristles sliding through hair. Then his breathing slowed into something calm and steady. She caught sight of them in the standing mirror, her perched like a miniature queen, Danny behind her, half smiling, like he couldn't believe this was real. It was real, though, and she liked it. Then Danny finally set the brush aside. Then he turned halfway on the stool to peer up at him. "You're not terrible at this." "Not terrible?" Danny extravagated the offense, pressing a hand to his chest. "That's the highest praise I've gotten all week." She rolled her eyes, but the smile tugged at her lips betrayed her. There was a soft knock at his open door, and Sam leaned against the frame, arms crossed, and a fond smile on her face. "So this is what happens when I share my secrets, huh?" Danny's ears went pink. "He made me bring the bench." Danny raised his hands in mock surrender. "I absolutely did not. She steamrolled me with it." Sam chuckled and came closer, brushing a hand over Danny's shoulder. "Looks like you two figured it out just fine." Then he glanced between them, her brow slipping into something more vulnerable. "We can do this again tomorrow?" she asked quietly. Then he reached forward, smoothing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Every night I'm here," he promised. "As long as you want." For a moment, then he just nodded, lips pressed tight as if she was trying to hold back a grin, or maybe something else. Then she stood, dragging her stool back towards her room with stubborn determination. Sam shook her head with amusement. "She's trying so hard to look happy." Then he leaned back on the bed, stretching with a satisfied sigh. "Yeah, but she doesn't have to say it." He glanced towards the connecting door, now shut again. "I know." Sam settled beside him, brushing her fingers against his. "Good, because that was pretty much the sweetest thing I've seen all year." Danny smirked, a little embarrassed. "Don't tell Jazz. I have a reputation to maintain." Sam laughed softly, and they both heard the faint scrape of Danny's stool being shoved back into place at her vanity next door. Grinning, Sam went back to the door, planning to go get ready for bed herself. Then he gave her a kiss goodnight and saw Cassandra already silently motioning down the hall. Sam giggled and headed on. Then he waved her over and gave her a hug. "Thanks for being more chill than the others, and thanks for helping me out." Then he laughed it. Cassandra beamed at him and gave him an extra squeeze before disappearing off to her own room somewhere in the manor. Greta had come to find Danny's attempts at becoming a father to his clone daughter absolutely adorable. It still took her by surprise when Danny faced through Danny's door in the middle of the night to climb into Danny's bed. She hadn't realized the girl also had powers, ghost powers. Later that night, Danny woke up to find Danny curled up beside him and smiled. He hugged her closer, and she snuggled into his chest. Alfred did indeed find them like that in the morning, and absolutely snapped a picture for a scrapbook. And that was the chapter! This was scary and fun. Definitely scary and fun. Like at the start of this, I was a bit paranoid of starting this. I don't know if it's because it's about the specific story or if it's because time. I don't know, okay? I don't know why, but it was that, okay? Okay. If you like this video, leave a like. If you like my videos in general, feel free to subscribe and share the video. I find it still interesting that there is so much responsibility on the Amity Parker side. I really like about this chapter that they fleshed like Danny, like the clone Danny, a bit more out, because in the like the stories beforehand, like the chapters beforehand, she felt a bit one-dimensional. I do Podfic commissions. If you like have a fanfiction you want me to read, you can contact me over Discord or Tumblr. Infos to how to like commission me for a podfic are on the screen or on my channel description. This video was actually sponsored by Faith Hellman. If you do commission me, you get early access to my Discord server where you can get like more accurate knowledge of what I'm posting next, and like to listen to me while I do these recordings live, and also just chill with me. I don't know. I also said a long time ago, in I don't know what video that actually was, that I like will probably like let multiple people from the channel also on the Discord server if I reach like 2,000 subscribers. I don't know when was the last time that I said that, and that might be a problem, but I don't know if it is. I don't know why, but like this is cutting me. When I started cutting this, I'm like, why is Sam pretending as if she has not been in Danny's life beforehand? That's like strange. You know what I'm missing for this whole fic? What I just realized? Their past dramas. Like they have all this going on, like I don't know, Vlad for example, other ghosts and all that. And like the problem is, like normally people have trauma from such events, and that feels like it's missing. Where is the experience from before? Where is the, oh yeah, Sam was my best friend actually for a long while. Why does she try to fit in a picture if she's already in it? I mean, like, that line really irritated me this chapter. I don't wanna don't talk it too much, but like, just little things that you just notice when you cut and listen and to the podfic over and over again to get it right. It's nice that they are like happy family acting and all that, but you know, there has been trauma beforehand. Other than if you try to give them more trauma, which is also fun, but that does not really add up if you don't really show that they have trauma from before. But that's just me. I should just shut up and continue cutting. I find it fucking strange that there are like instances of like character actions that mischaracterizes them so much. Like, Danny is already acting as if she's already part of the bats, even though she has no clue about them, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck? But that's probably all for my yapping. Here are some recording highlights. More police. Nah, then he mouthed a soft and his grin crooked, and his grin blah blah blah, and his grin crooked, and his grin crooked, who immediately goused. Huh. Translate bin. Come and get your food.
Groused.
So it is groused. Boring the kosher? What? Another word.
Kosher.
So it is kosher, okay. Later after Danny woke and clambered. I think it's meant to be climbed. I'm gonna go with climbed. Danny's eyes. No, not eyes. They grabbed an obvious Tim and dragged him off in a bed that looked like it belonged to a fairy tale. In a bed. Right down this. Or go shopping. Oh, ha! Got you again. No. Damian Wayne's crossing her arms with satisfied smile. No, you're just bottom mashing. You're just bottom CPS barely lets you stay with your own folk. As eccentric, stable more. You claim her as your daughter. You claim her as your own. That's eight out of. God. Damien scrawled at the screen, creeping up his neck. Damien noticed, and of course filled it away for later use. They leaned against the counter, watching him with soap suds. What?
Suds.
It is suds. Wait a second. He reappeared in the doorway. Arms folded. The detective in him pipped. No, I'm sorry. I just need to check. I just need to be sure.
Peaked.
So it is something that is. Okay. To respect how people connect to their spirituality. So I wouldn't mess it up. And had separate the dishes. Is an understatement. A few years back. Sociality? What? Let's see. Socialite. Tim sputtered, tucking the towel of Steph. The kitchen lights loomed. Too stark-vibed as he passed one to her. It tastes awful on its own, so we have it compounded with chocolate. Easier to swallow that way. Weekly dose for both of us. Both hands comically carrying her vanity bench in both hands. No, that's arms. That's goddamn arms. With a loud tug. No. Fuck. No. We're almost done. This is fine. This is all fine. Yes, this is fine.
Thunk.
So it is funk, okay. Monitoring for hair to sit. No, not monitoring. Motioning. I guess it makes you my official side source. For a while, it was just a quiet sound of not terrible. Danny, yeah, but she doesn't have to say it. What the fuck did I just do? Then he gave her a kiss. Good night. Greta had come to find Greta had no. Okay, you got this. Enjoy the rest of your time. See you next time.